Hey guys, welcome to my channel. I am Puddles, and today we have part 22 of my challenging... No, it's not my challenging, it's my encounter building series. Sorry, brain fart there. Today we're talking about challenging your damage dealers. I previously talked about explosive damage and sustained damage, and how we can challenge players who are good at either of those. Today we're going to be talking about ranged and melee. So, how can we challenge our ranged attack players who are hiding in the back? How can we challenge our tanky face hunter people who are just in the front lines wreaking havoc? Let's talk about that. Boop. Here we are. Okay. Ranged attackers. We've got your rangers, your Eldritch Blast warlocks. You've got your like bow and arrow rogues. You can have fighters that are doing this role. You could have bards. Like, there are many different ranged attackers. But what can we do to challenge them? So normally they're just sitting in the back, hiding behind the tree with their little bow and arrows. How can we stop them? Well, we can have creatures with high AC. One, it's harder for them to hit things. They're all reliant on like attack rolls. So if you have something with high AC, it's less likely that they're going to hit it. Second, we can give terrain to our creatures and take terrain away from our players. So you could have a battlefield where the ranged attackers on one side of the field have cover and the ranged attackers on the other side don't. So if you don't give your ranger any cover to use, they don't have anywhere to hide and get cover. So that's one thing you can do to challenge them. You can have creatures target your ranged attackers. So you want your creatures to get in close so that when your ranger or your warlock are trying to like cast their spells or shoot their bows, they have disadvantage on those attacks. And they're normally going to try to be as far away from the combat as they possibly can. And you have to sort of make creatures that can close that gap, either giving them flying or like choosing flying creatures, teleporting, have like a pincer maneuver where there's like a small group going around the back. These are all things that you can do to like close the gap so that your ranged players are fighting the creatures hand to hand, you know? You can also have ranged creatures on your side of the combat that are shooting at your ranged players. Basically, you want to focus them. If they're used to the combat going like they hiding in the background while all the other players are fighting and they're just shooting from distance, you want to combat that's completely opposite to that. You want people targeting them. You can punish the players that are away from the group. If your healer is 120 feet in the front lines and you have some sneaky rogue guys sneak around to attack the ranged guy, he is in trouble. The healer cannot get to him. He has to figure out a way to either get to the healer or like kill these guys. So if there are players who are choosing to be really far away from the group and shoot from a distance, punish that. Like, make them think like a second time before they go to do that again. Don't make them think that they're safe in the bushes 120 feet away from the fight when you could just say that there are guys sneaking up on them. Again, don't do this all the time. Just do this if you want to challenge them. Have creatures with the deflect missile ability. So monks can deflect missiles and throw them back. Give your creatures that ability or choose creatures that already have it. I've already said it, but creatures with mobility are important. Having teleport or flying to get close to them is a big important if you're trying to close that gap. And lastly, obstruct vision. If your player is 120 feet back shooting and it's raining, would they really be able to see the combat? If they are in a tunnel, what's their dark vision? Probably 60 feet. Wow, they can't see that far. So you can use the vision to limit how far away they can be from the fight. But yeah, that is our ranged attackers. Let's go to melee. Now melee, it's mostly about mobility. It can be very frustrating for melee attackers, but these are things that you can do to challenge them. First, creatures that you don't want to get close to. So if you have a player who's only melee and they do most of their damage melee, have them fight like a gelatinous cube that is deadly when it's super close to you. That's one way to challenge them. They will think twice before getting close to that creature again. Secondly, mobility. Have flying creatures. If there's a creature in the air, your melee character can't get to them. Have ranged creatures on top of a cliff shooting down at them. Yeah, like they have to get in range before they can attack. So using creatures that have a faster movement speed than them and just kiting around them the whole time, it's pretty frustrating and difficult for them to deal with that. And yeah, if you have a melee player who's just been like destroying everything and you just want to show them that their character has weaknesses, you can do these things. And again, don't do this every single fight because your player will hate you. But yeah, these are things that you can do to challenge them. You can do terrain obstructions, like I said, the cliff. So difficult terrain in places, so they have to like move at half speed to get to the fight. Climbing to enemies, things like that. And conditions as well. You can grapple and restrain them by so if there's like one creature that's there to just grapple and restrain the melee so that they can't get to the backlines, you could totally do that. Stopping movement is or hindering their movement is the main thing with challenging melee attackers. You could also have traps that protect the backlines. You could have a pit trap in front of like a row of archers, and as soon as like your barbarian charges in, he just falls into it. Yeah, it's pretty nasty, but if these are ways to challenge them. You can have creatures that have effects when you get close. There are things like the corpse flower has a stench cloud. If you get too close to it, you might become paralyzed. There are other creatures that have like poison gas clouds around them, things like that. You could also have creatures that have abilities that trigger when you hit them. So like the Rimaraz, if you hit it, its blood is so hot that it hurts you. So every time you hit this thing with a melee attack, you take damage. And that's significant for a melee attacker. And you could also, if you want, give your creatures a reaction retaliation attack. So if your player hits them, as a reaction, they can hit back. Which makes sense. You could totally do that, especially if you're trying to challenge your melee attackers. And last but not least, fear. If your melee attacker fails their fear save, they can't move closer to whatever they're trying to fight, which can be very debilitating. Oh my god, I can't believe I screwed that word up so badly. It can be very debilitating for your melee attackers. That was a perfect brain fart. But yeah, that's basically everything. Melee attackers, stop their movement, stop their mobility, keep your characters away from them, and if they do get in close, make whatever they're fighting super dangerous. And with your ranged attackers, just get in close and target them. Don't let them hide in the shadows. But yeah, these are things you could do to challenge your players. I've often seen in Reddit threads, you'll have like, oh, my barbarian is impossible to kill, or things like that. You can do things to challenge your players. You just have to think outside the box instead of just throwing like numbers and creatures at them. Think of what their weaknesses are. Think of how you can target those weaknesses and do it. But don't do it every fight, because if you're targeting one player, they're going to get frustrated and they're not going to have much fun. But yeah, that's that for this series in terms of challenging your players. I might make some more videos on this in the future if there's any call for it, but I think I've been pretty extensive in giving you a decent background of how to challenge different types of players. So without my god, I need to stop making videos. Without further ado, I'm going to stop this recording and say goodbye.